Thank you, Sierra, for being here with us today. We genuinely appreciate you sharing your experiences and perspectives and journey with us. So McKenna is here to start you off with a few questions.
Awesome.
Which college?
During my undergraduate degree, I went to North Carolina A&T University, and that stands for Agriculture and Technical State University. If that's in Greensboro, North Carolina, it's one of the HBCUs in North Carolina, and I had an amazing experience there. I'm a proud alumni, proud Aggie.
What was your major during your time there?
Yeah. So my major while I was in undergrad, I was a liberal studies major with a concentration in women and gender studies.
And what drew you to that in particular?
Yeah, of course, of course. So I've always been passionate about social issues. I really wanted to find a better understanding of gender and sexuality and race and culture and social issues. So I also had a huge connection in inequalities and initiating change within those equalities in different forms of oppression as well. So I wanted to find a career that I could branch out and use my social justice warrior spirit and really advocate for change. You know, I am very passionate on these particular issues that I just mentioned. And I thought that liberal studies and women and gender studies was the perfect major for me. And once I was able to get into the degree and learn about it even more, I said, this is it. This is where I want to go. I want to be an advocate. I didn't know a lot about it going in. I was one of four students that graduated in that major in my university. So we were a very small class. Our classes were very intimate. The professors were very intimate, but we learned so much and we were able to build with each other throughout our years at A&T. And I credit A&T and that Women and Gender Studies program for where I am now in my career.
Speaking of that, how do you feel that having this major with a concentration in women and gender studies has influenced your career choices?
Yeah, I think it's influenced it a lot. I think my career right now, I'm currently a victim advocate or a survivor advocate, I like to say. So it provides me that experience of working with sexual survivors of sexual assault, interpersonal violence, stalking, harassment. And in the women and gender studies major, you get to learn about those particular issues. You take classes where you're understanding the different oppressions and trauma that focuses on survivorhood. So I think this major has really helped me so much in learning and finding out information regarding these particular issues and branching off of, which direction I wanted to take. I credit that to the courses that I had in undergrad. So I think this major sets the tone for providing an outlook of what you can do next as far as advocacy and how you can support survivors.
So, where are you currently employed?
Yes, so I'm currently employed at UNCW, University of North Carolina at Wilmington. Let's go Seahawks.
And what are your responsibilities, or what is a typical day like for you as a survivor advocate?
Yeah. So as a survivor advocate, of some of my responsibilities, I one of our main responsibilities is crisis intervention. So at the CARE office, we are the collaboration for assault response and education. And as a part of our office, we have prevention, where we go around and we provide educational presentations and campaigns around campus that promote our issues. But I work on the crisis response side of our office. So a main responsibility of a survivor advocate is crisis response. And what that looks like generally on a day-to-day basis is that we're supporting survivors of sexual assault, interpersonal violence, stalking, and harassment. And one of the really great things about the CARE office is that we are a confidential resource. So we hold that confidentiality for survivors coming in who are wanting to disclose, but may not be comfortable sharing their information or their story with other people. So we hold that space for survivors. We provide crisis intervention, safety planning. We provide emotional support and additional resources and referrals to our on-campus partners and our community partners. And what that generally looks like is that can be a whole realm of support for survivors. So we offer academic advocacy. We're able to help students with accommodations with classes or changing their class schedules or helping with withdrawal due to extenuating circumstances. We're able to provide medical advocacy. We're able to support survivors during sexual assault nurses examinations where they go to the hospital and they receive an exam after a sexual assault. We're able to provide accompaniment and support for survivors, help them accessing preventative medications, which are free to survivors. And a lot of survivors don't know that. And we're able to provide medical appointments and accompaniments for them. And we also work with Title IX. One of the big components at our university is Title IX. So that's more of a formal process with the university. We can sit in on investigations. We can help with no contact orders through Title IX. And we also help with no contact orders through the state of North Carolina. So we're able to go to the courthouse, help file for protective orders, and sit with survivors through that court process when that can be a really difficult process to sit through. So we provide that emotional support and accompaniment and connect them to legal services while they're trying to process their trauma. And most importantly, we can help with criminal processing and police reporting. We know police, it can be difficult to speak with police and trust police in some communities. So we're able to be that connector to survivors and additional resources that we have available within our community. So that is a day-to-day basis. It doesn't look the same or typical, but we do man a 24-hour crisis line. So if students are not wanting to come into the office and they just want to give us a call or send us a text message through that crisis line, we can support students, faculty, and staff. I want to note that as well, through their survivorhood and provide education, tips for trauma-informed care, what the cycle of abuse looks like, some signs of unhealthy relationships, how to cope through trauma, how to access resources and navigate through the criminal justice process. So we're able to provide that support. Although it looks different some days, we try our best to be a connector to the UNCW community and our off-campus community as well. I truly, every time I describe advocacy and what I do, it is truly an honor to share this space with a survivor or someone who's gone through a traumatic experience. And we also support family and friends because we know vicarious trauma and secondary trauma is also, something that we want to make sure we're connecting and supporting as well. So it is an honor and to share this space. I definitely am privileged to do that. And I definitely want to acknowledge that.
So what path did you take to get to this current position from undergraduate to here, to where you are now?
Yeah. So I had a journey. I went through a journey. So right after undergrad, right after I left North Carolina A&T, I was in this place, after college, you're trying to figure it out. I think that is one of the main things about graduating from undergrad. You're like, what am I going to do next? What is the next step for me? I need to figure this out. And I put a lot of pressure on myself, but I was able to kind of breathe a little bit and focus on next steps. But I relocated, I moved to Washington, D.C. So after I graduated undergrad, I left North Carolina, moved to Washington, D.C. And one of my first positions was at a nonprofit organization for women and families. So what I did there, I started off as a client assistant. So what client assistants did during that time was support the social workers on staff and help support clients that we had in our local domestic violence shelter, which at that time we called it a safe house. So I worked in client assistant, helping our social worker, helping clients when they came in and needing support, and just providing that, again, emotional support, safety planning, crisis intervention, additional resources. And then from there, I was promoted to a residence home coordinator. So I was able to monitor the shelter, make sure survivors came into the shelter safe, make sure they were able to transition out of the shelter safe with additional resources from our social worker, and followed up with them throughout their process. And then from there, I kind of shifted over into case management. So case management work is a little bit different than advocacy work, but is similar. But the case management organization that I was working for was supporting survivors of all crime in the Washington, D.C. area. So not only survivors of interpersonal violence, but we supported survivors of every crime you could think of. So I did a lot of hospital response in that role. And that's where I was really able to support survivors for SANE exams and medical processes and criminal processes more within that case management role. And that was most of the organizations I have worked for have been nonprofit or community organizations. And then, once I did some case management work, that is more so dealing with cases. So community advocacy is a little bit different because you're seeing cases one by one. And in those cases, you have to really make sure that you're taking care of yourself because you're seeing a lot, you're experiencing a lot, and you take on a lot. So you have a huge caseload, you're receiving clients daily, and you're doing daily reach outs, and you're in the community. You're actually going to homes, you're actually going to the hospital, you're going to the police station, and you're out there in the field. So it requires a lot of self-care throughout that process. So after my case management work, I shifted way left. I went to the military and did victim advocacy in the military. I am a military brat. My dad is an Army, Army. He was previous Army personnel. So he worked in the Army, and I worked for a family advocacy program. And in that family advocacy program, that's where I saw an umbrella of services alongside with the case management services. So in our case management organization and in the military organization, our agencies had lawyers available for survivors. And also we had social workers available for survivors. And then we also had a new parent support person available for survivors. So I worked in those organizations that had an umbrella and that focused more on the family unit. So while I was thinking about that, I was able to get a sense of what I wanted to do following victim advocacy, and that was social work. So right now I am currently in a social work program, pursuing my master's in clinical social work. But those experience of working as a survivor advocate in the family advocacy program, doing case management work and working in a safe house kind of shaped my whole career. And as soon as I started working in that safe house, I knew that this is the type of work that I was supposed to be in. And I knew this is what I wanted to do moving forward. And then I ended up here at UNCW in higher education, working in student affairs, supporting the campus community, and really engaging with our students. And I feel that this is one of the most community-based and supportive roles that I've ever been in when it comes to advocacy, because working with students, I love to provide education while also providing the tools to support around trauma. So I am happy to be here. And as you can see, I've dipped in every type of advocacy realm you can think of. So there are so many things you could do with the Women and Gender Studies background, and that platform just really engages you and gives you a perspective of which direction you hope to take or would like to take, or different options you could take for sure.